So this is 1.7, the first video. We'll call it A, properties of real numbers. A lot of these properties, most of these properties you've used over and over and over. And I'm not really going to worry about teaching you the names, the commutative property of addition, the commutative property of multiplication, associative property, all that. The properties exist, but if you know how to use them, I'm really not too concerned about you knowing the name. So, for example, example 1 says 5 plus x plus 3. So when you do that, you're naturally going to take the 5 and 3 and add them together, and you can't do anything with the x because you can't add a letter to a number. So you end up with that. What happens is because we added this number to this number and didn't do it in any particular order, that's called the commutative property of addition. You know, that's pretty much it. When we multiply 3 times 6 times 4, I can multiply those numbers in any order I want. I can multiply 3 times 6 times 4, or I can multiply 4 times 6 times 3. It doesn't really matter. And that is called the associative property of multiplication. So let's just jump into example 2 here and get going on some of these. So if we have negative 5 times 2x. So again, you can only multiply numbers, so we get negative 10 because the signs are different, so our answer is negative x. If we have 6 times negative 5y, multiply our numbers, negative 30, and we tag a y on there. Alright, so that's that example. Example 3, we have 1/5 times 5x. So we make this into a fraction, multiply the numerators. Let's line these up a little better. Multiply the numerators. 5 times 1 is 5. Tag on the x. Bottom, 5 times 1 is 5. Any number over itself is 1, so those can go away, and our answer is just x. If we have b, negative 2 times negative 1 over 2 x, and the thing about this x is that x can go next to the fraction, or it could actually go up here on top. It doesn't matter. It cannot go on the bottom, but it can go beside it, or it can go on top. I prefer personally to put it on top, but you do with it what you want. Alright, so we're going to make that into a fraction. So we multiply negative 2 times negative 1. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 1 is 2. The x just tags along because you can't multiply it. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1, and we get x. Now when we get to part C in this, you notice how I kind of talk real slow when I'm trying to erase my board so that I can get things done in time? Maybe not. Alright, 2/3, and again I'm going to put my x up there on top because I'm multiplying a whole number times a fraction. I'm going to make the whole number a fraction. Multiply the 12 times the 2 and get 24, and the x tags along. 1 times 3 is 3. 24 times 3. 3 goes into 24 evenly 8 times. So we get 8x. Alright, so not really sure why they use this whole large rectangle thingy here, but I'm just going to skip over that and jump into example 4. I don't mind using manipulatives, but I think when they use manipulatives like that, in fact I can't even say it, oftentimes it's more confusing than helpful. At least it is for me, but maybe I'm being a disservice by not teaching that. But anyway, when we have something like that, we look and see what's in the parenthesis. We cannot add a letter and a number together, so we have to leave it that way. But we have a 2 out there. In this 2, we can multiply by the x, and we can multiply by the 3. That's called the distributive property. If you can read my writing. Distributive property. So we multiply 2 times x and get 2x. We multiply 2 times positive 3 and get positive 6. And we are done. When we are doing something like 5 times 2x minus 8, Multiply the 5 by 2x and we get 10x. Multiply the 5 by negative 8 and we get negative 40. And we're done. If we take negative 5 times 2x plus 4y. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10x. Negative 5 times 4y is negative 20y. Remember, negative times a positive is a negative. So that ends up being our final answer there. So let's jump into D here. And we have negative 4 times 3x minus 5 minus 8. So let's do our distributive. Distributing. Negative 4 times 3, negative times a positive is a negative. Negative 4 times negative 5 is a positive 20. And we have a negative 8 that gets tagged on to the end. So whenever we use the distributive property, notice the parentheses come off once we distribute. So now we have negative 12x, 20 minus 8 is 12. Okay, and we're done there. Let's look at example number 5. In this one we have negative 1/3 and we're going to multiply it by 2x minus 6. So now we're multiplying a fraction. So this is going to be over 1 so that we can multiply these two. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2, 3 times 1 is 3. Now we're going to multiply it by that. We're going to make that one into a fraction. So negative 1 times negative 6 is positive 6. Negative times negative is a positive. This 3 times this 1 is also, or just 3. Now I can add these because I have common denominators. So I'm going to look at my top numbers. Negative 2 plus 6. Signs are different, so I'm going to take the difference between the two, put the sign of the largest one on top. And the bottom number you never do anything to in addition of fraction or subtraction of fractions. Let's look at C. A times 1 plus 1 over A. We have to find common denominators for this here to add, or maybe we should just distribute and see what happens. Let's multiply that. 1 times A is A. Now let's multiply that. Okay, that's the same as A over 1, so this A times 1 is just A, and it's going to go over A times 1, so it's going to go over A. Any number over it itself is 1. Even letters, any letter over itself. Golly, what is that? So this A is going to go there. Any letter, any number, any apple, anything over itself is 1. So we're just going to change that to a 1. Alright, so let's look at D. 12 times 2/3 x plus 1/2 y. Whew. Alright, let's multiply this through. We're going to make this into a fraction so that we're multiplying fractions. So 12 times 2 is 24. 1 times 3 is 3. And we tag our x on there. Now we're going to take this times this. 12 times 1 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. And we have a y. 24 over 3 will reduce, though, to 8. 12 over 2 reduces to 6. And at that point we're done. Okay, so we're just doing problem after problem of review these different types so that when you get to the homework you've kind of covered them. Let's look at 10 times x over 2. When we have a whole number, if you want to continue making this into a fraction, you can, so that you know to multiply the 10 times the x and the 2 times the 1, and then 10 over 2 is 5, and you end up with 5x. But a lot of folks get to the point where they don't need to do this anymore. They just know that when they have a whole number that's just multiplied by the x, and that stays the same. So it's just 10x over 2. So it might be good to start getting used to doing that. So a times, and of course this one isn't like that, but if it were, well, maybe it is. So we get for the first part right here, 3a over a minus a times 4 is 4a. Okay, now we look at this here. Is there anything we can cancel? Do we have any of the same letters on top and bottom, or numbers? In this case it's letters. We have that and that, so we can get rid of that. So that just becomes 3 minus 4a. There's nothing else we can do. That's it. Okay, so let's continue on here with example 7, and then we'll be done with this lesson. And well, it looks like we're going to do it in one, well, maybe long video, but doesn't seem to be too bad. Example 7, they give you some different things that are happening, and they're asking you to state the property, like whether it's commutative, associative, distributive, or whatever. Don't worry about that. I'm not really too concerned about whether you know how to name all of those different properties. After a master's degree in math, I don't remember what they are, so apparently, I know it sounds terrible, but it's not that important to know all of those. So anyway, the next video will be the problem set of 1.7.